because it's cutting contours and we're like how many hundred feet are we at in Colorado?
7,000, I think it was.
7,000. So imagine the number of contours it's cutting right now. It's like what, 14,000 contours. We're going to be like mountain goats, and we're going to be very careful that our footing is good and we don't fall down the hill.
Welcome to Kit Crashing, where we explore landscape architecture, tools like 3D, parametric design, and AI. This season, I'm joined by guest host and landscape architect Ishaan Kumar. Ishaan brings the challenges, and I tackle them live, using computational design and my plugin, Land Kit, to create better workflows.
Good morning, Ishaan. How are you?
Hey, good, good.
Good.
It's great to finally be kicking off this series this year.
Yeah, I agree. It's a little overdue, Kit Crashing season two, but I think we have a really cool idea this year to sort of look at designs, you and I, which will be pretty awesome, and then see how LandKit could be used to kind of do those sort of design problems and kind of take a different approach than what people are usually doing with CAD and all the back and forth
One of the
that
things I'm
you're
most
interested.
excited about, and something that you and I have talked about a lot, is, having worked as a designer at MVVA, Scape, SWA, W Architecture, and most recently Local. Like, I've tasted a little bit about how all those firms work, and it's very similar. We're all drafting or sketching and then bringing in the XREF of the JPEG, tracing it, bringing that into Rhino, modeling that, going back into CAD. And a lot of the things, could all be designed in Rhino and exported out into CAD. And I think this project that I want to work with you on today, as I was doing it in that typical way that I'm very comfortable working in, I was just like, this is the perfect project to do with Topo Kit. So I'm excited to see you work your magic, and I'll quickly introduce the project to give you some background.
Awesome. Yeah.
I've been freelancing with a former colleague of mine, Preston Link. He started this company after working at MVVA for many years, and he was the really great at building stuff and on site. And my mouse is lagging here. He developed a niche of doing these like mixed use developments and pool decks and a lot of residential work that wasn't really up my alley always. I working at these bigger firms, it's more public facing work that I've done, but I started to diversify my project load, and one of these projects that he came along is a big renovation of a project in Colorado, and the house is going to be renovated by the architect, and they hired him to work on the landscape, and it's a big extension in the back. But in terms of the landscape, you could see that there are very steep slopes. There isn't a physical connection between the lower level and the upper level, so that was a challenge that we wanted to solve. And in the back, you could see that it's a really steep landscape that isn't really programmed or usable. You have these really weird retaining walls in front of boulder walls. And so part of that inspiration was to use these walls to create grade and space in the back and flat areas. Um, and it's a beautiful project, a beautiful site. And I'll walk you through a little bit what we ended up doing in terms of the process. And this is what how I'm comfortable working. And Preston as well, he drafts a lot. A big concern, as I said from the beginning, was getting up. So here we are at 7368. I think the lower level is 7380. So there's already 12 feet of elevation that he negotiated here. But then I think this is at 81. And so he did the snake back path to get up to that elevation. And then there was a bunch of stairs that we wanted to reduce the height. So he bumped up the steepness of this path. So there isn't a physical connection here. And then from the lower level, we wanted to get up to the first floor level and push back grade in the back to create space. flat space. And we ended up creating these tiers, one for a fire pit and this like really cool barrel sauna. I've never seen that. And the client wanted
Copper? Was it out of copper?
no, wooden.
Oh,
It's like
okay.
these really beautiful sauna spaces. And then a lawn area. I thought this additional tier was a bit much, but you can see we're pushing back the grades. And
Right.
the way I worked with Preston is there was kind of a dividing line. He handled the vehicular part and then challenged me to figure out the grading back here. And as I said, the process for me, I'm very comfortable drafting. I have an architecture background and I've worked, drafting, grading at MBVA. That was really foundational. And the way I worked here was looking at the existing elevation. I brought the sketch into the like CAD into Miro, and I started sketching and trying to understand. Okay, I have 9 feet of grade change at 6 inches every riser. I need 22 steps, and I tried to kind of map that out, like the cadence, if it was a full run, how I would do it, like how I could integrate these step wall into the angle. And then the bigger part was how do you negotiate 9 feet of grade change with walls? And we were trying to stay within code of 30 inches from every wall. So that was the first exercise was, all right, how many walls do I need to negotiate that maintaining the 30 inches? And I was like, okay, the section is ugly. I mean, it looks okay, but you don't have a sense of depth. And when you look at it in plan, you're like, all right, well, these are very stupid spaces in between, very minimal planting. And so, you draft, you cut the section. So I'm drawing those guidelines. Land Kit, I could be doing those things simultaneously.
We'll
And
see.
then I reduced the walls and I wanted this like tapered wall that could relate to the height of the stair. And
Yeah.
so I was thinking about these things in plan and looking at it in a section that I was drawing manually, and I can't like adjust the elevation of one wall and thinking about this tiered wall that could serve as an edge, and then the top of wall could serve as the grill station, and then another wall could be a bench
Nice.
that could be at the same height. So I was thinking about these things in plan when really I know that with Topo tools, we could be doing this much more faster um, in 3D and iterating the power of iteration through LandKit is something that I know exists, and I'm happy to exercise that with you on this project today.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's not just rendering, right? Like you can actually figure things out in 3D, and that's pretty that's hopefully powerful, but not everybody thinks that way. That's not how we were taught in school or at firms. It's like, what do people try to do it differently. It's like, what are you doing? So that's why we're talking about this stuff, so that we
And
can
it's
like
not a
look at
linear
it and think
process.
about
Like
it.
it's not a linear process as you're saying, like it's not drawing in plan. What I was doing is drawing in plan, taking that plan, bringing it into Miro, sketching over it, drawing a section, going back into plan. But they were all very linear steps.
Yeah.
And I think, what I'm excited to see with you today is just like how those things can be very fluid back and forth. You change the height of a wall and the section is being updated and you're seeing those things in 3D and orbiting, getting a sense of the stair and the relationship. So yeah, hopefully that's enough context.
I think that's pretty good. I'm gonna start firing up Rhino here. So let me
I'll
share
stop
my
sharing.
screen. Um, and then there's always a bit of rearranging here, which is fun. Okay, so I'll share my screen. So this is Rhino, and um, I'm gonna take you sent me some files. I'm just gonna start with the base file. I'll drag that in here. Um, and I'm assuming that the base has, and I get a dialog here that going to insert that file. I like to insert because if I import, all that geometry comes into the file, and if you have to update the file, it's a nightmare. So we like to kind of keep everything packaged, and then we'll say embedding is okay.
Does it bring in all the XREFs? Or does it
No, no,
recognize?
actually the XREFs should come in, so I'm not going to prompt for a locate. I like to just put it at 00 to start with. And usually you can say import uh where is it? It should be here. So I don't want millimeters, I want inches, right? Everything
Yeah.
was drawn in inches. Actually, before I bring this in, I have to change my file type, my units. I'm in millimeters, so I have to make sure. I like to work in feet because of the grading more than anything.
Hmm.
And then I'll close that, and then I'll re-import. Sorry about that. This is like repetition. Insert, embed, and don't prompt. Say apply. And then I like to make sure I'm in. Usually these CAD drawings are in inches, like the actual unit is in inches. And
Think ahead
then
of time, Chris. If when you import, it's going to import in the same location as the CAD file, right?
it
We're not
will, yeah,
moving.
it will.
I
But there
think
can be
that's
problems with that. There can be
why
problems.
I think you would want to keep that so that if you design something and you want to export line work back into CAD, it would maintain that one-to-one relationship.
Ideally. But the problem is that it looks like I'm gonna just keep both blocks here and then do it for all. Yeah, so the issue there is like if you bring it in and it's out in outer space, like it's like way far away from the origin, that can create real problems, whether you're in Rhino or in Revit. So the key there is that you're not running into sort of rounding errors and things like that. Um, and so what I like to do oftentimes is if
Use a
this thing
reference point,
it's pretty far out there, um, and it looks like all our this is
annotative
the
skills.
annotations are a little this has a little bit to do with the fact that all the annotations are okay. Fun. So all the annotations are just coming in like at the wrong scale. So how do
You
we
can
deal with
select all
this?
and change the height, no?
Yeah, you could, but they're inside of blocks, which is a challenge. So what I like to do is which block am I selecting here? So I like to go here, um, and then I go inside the block, and then I see if I can select my
Oh,
main blocks.
it did bring in all the XREFs then, you see?
Yeah. And sometimes what I like to do is because I like to hop into these blocks and hide them and things like that, I'll put them on different layers. So I might
Well,
take the
just to
survey.
facilitate this exercise, I think we can delete a couple to make the file lighter. And having familiarity, I could tell you which ones to remove.
Um, that's
Remove
okay.
object. Can we do that?
I'm gonna start with the survey and I'm gonna bring that out of the block.
Okay.
And then this I'm gonna put on, actually I need to, what I like to do also is I have a template of stuff. So I'm going to grab that and it's just under my project templates. And what I'll do is I'll just drag that template in to my file, right? So I can just pull my template in. And it's mainly for my layers to be able to organize myself. So I'm just going to say import that template, apply it. And then what you'll see happen here is that I have now all these layers for
Hmm.
organizing things. So I'll just, when I readjust my layer order, all those CAD layers just go down here. And that's what I prefer to do. A lot of people like to just constantly put all those files in another folder. I try to keep all my main stuff in these underscore layers, and then they sit at the top. They always rise to the top, and then I can order things and I can find them easier. But what we'll do is we'll grab this is all the other stuff. And just for now, I'm going to put this under inserted and I'll call this all just because we'll come back to it. So we'll change these, put that there. And this is our survey. So I'll hop
Very
into the
fast.
survey. I'll select text, and then I'm going to go over here to, my text settings, and I'm going to change the height to like zero point 0.5.
There we
Ah,
go.
much better. The other thing I want to do that's really important is select all my contours, right? So going to select, it looks like we have the C
It's
topo
yeah, and
major and
major.
minor.
There you go.
We'll select those objects. Sometimes people will also have their annotations on that layer, and sometimes there's a little bit of sorting. Um, but I'm inside of the block right now. So I'm gonna copy these elements from that area and say apply, and then I'm gonna paste them in back into the main file after I close the block. I'll put those under my um, and this layer structure is very similar to what we do for our workflows, but I'm going to put this under the existing contours.
Yeah, it makes sense to have that one-to-one relationship very
Yeah.
fast.
And then I'll take the survey, I'll put it on this inserted layers, the survey layer, change object layer, and I may just lock it and just close it for a second. Okay, so now I have all these existing contours. Um, let's let's start to look at this in terms of a surface, right?
Right.
So I'll launch Grasshopper.
Oh, this is so exciting.
I aim to please, but we'll see. Hopefully you're excited.
Um,
Hopefully you're impressed. Hopefully
one of
everybody's.
the things like just starting from scratch, just to share with the client is the elevation analysis, the slope analysis, where water is going. Like none of that we did. And
Oh wow.
I it's just like pure uh goal driven of like connect these two elevations.
Right.
Meanwhile, in my head, all these experiences at different offices, part of it is design, part of it is ecological, part of it
Yeah.
is functional, hydrology. So I think just creating the first surface and showing all those, outputs of slope, hydro, and elevation
Yeah.
are just great graphics to have in the background to,
Yeah.
under
To
overlay
understand.
onto understand the
Yeah.
site.
Maybe we can turn those things on real quick. So we've got topo existing. So this is how when you have sub layers, you do these two little semicolons or two colons. And so it's the parent name and then the child name, and then you say okay. And what that does is I'm looking for this parent layer here. So it's under topo and it's existing. And these all these things here are part of the Geo Set. And the Geo Set allows you to put draw different geometries on that layer so that then it's just importing all that stuff. We've already moved the contours to that layer, so that's great. So what we'll do is we'll create a Geo Set. So create Geo Set, and these are all part of the Land Kit plugin. And then we'll say, I like to also do a refresh button, just in case we want to refresh that at any point. And then from the Geo Set, we're going to create topo. And as anyone who's done this before or seen any of this, you'll start to discover that like there are other things you can add, like walls and stuff. We're not going to do that for the existing probably, but you could, right? And then we have our draw topo, because there's all kinds of things you can do before you draw it, and we'll look at that. But once we draw it, now we have that in our file. It looks like we have some other stuff on that layer. I think I know what it is. There's in our template, I always forget about this. In our template, we have stuff hidden. So I'm just going to say show and then um, hide these or delete these points. And now that they're gone, I know some of these things
Refresh.
are not. Now, so it does pull in stuff. The lesson here is that it pulls in stuff that is hidden, right? And then I'll say refresh, and I've got the update.
It's
Um,
incredible how fast it gives you the like marker of time.
oh, right, right. So there's the basic topo, right? We have a pretty good sense that this is right, but there's other subtle things you can do to kind of make this a really good mesh to represent it. Um, we don't, I don't know if we need to get into that. So let me change our settings here a little bit in terms of what we're seeing. So I can say elevation analysis, and we can plug that in, and then I can hide all this stuff. And then what we see is a nice kind of elevation map of what's happening. We can also cut contours. So we have this new contours tool that's a little different than the regular Grasshopper contour tool. So you plug in your mesh, and then you say what the step size is. And because I want to see what's happening with the mesh and not just with the contours that I already have, I'm going to do a 1/2 foot step. And then I can also, um, so I can sort of see some of the weird stuff happening here. Um, I can see that the contours are sort of, flowing in between those other ones. And it gives me a picture of what's actually happening with the topography. And I've got, walls here are kind of being represented using contours, but they run into all kinds of issues, and we'll talk about that a little bit. There are some weird overlapping contours too, some strange things happening. So I might move that.
Yeah, some of those lines might not make sense, and I realized that after the fact, so
That's
that
all
might
right.
throw off.
So one thing I'm seeing is that like when I make changes, I want to see the update. So there's a few
Hmm.
things you can do. We can set it up so that it updates automatically, or we can actually move this button. We can say publish to remote panel. What I've done is I've opened the Grasshopper panel, and that button is now present. So when I click on it, it now updates that area.
Nice.
I like to also label these buttons if I'm going to start doing that. It's pretty important because I lose the context of what is it. So I say existing topo refresh, right? Now I'm also going to save this file. Um, and I'll just save it here for now.
And the Rhino file too, while we're at it.
Yeah, good idea. So I'll save that to the desktop right now. Just for now. We're not going to fuss around with that too much. So you see here how the grading kind of goes doesn't quite match that edge.
Hmm.
Um, that's partly because of our settings, but it's also partly because it's drawing points along those contours, and we can't really see. I'm going to brighten this up a little bit so you can see. Um, it sort of rounds that out a little bit. So we can change the settings. Oops. I had my color dialog open. We can change the settings of the topo draw. So we can say minimum of 1 foot. What is the minimum? It's 2 feet. So we just make that a little tighter. And this tightens up a little bit. But
Hmm.
there's still little swales and things. So what I like to do is draw a break line. And we're not going to do all of these, but I just want to show you how you can clean it up. You can draw along here. If you know if it's even steps, you can also just skip to the end. And then when I say exists, oops, I made
Topo
a
refresh.
mistake. I have project turned on, which means that I just drew a break line at like 0, right? And I want that break line to actually be in 3D space. So I'm going to turn that off, delete this, and then do a polyline. So I draw that polyline across here. I say okay, and then I refresh this. And this cleans up our grading a bit here. It looks
Mhm.
like all these edges aren't exactly, well, maybe they are. It cleans it up a bit. Where it's more important to do these things is where you have big fuzzy, like here, where see how the grades like flatten out?
Hmm.
They don't follow this edge. So I might do a polyline and then I might start here and I might extend this out along here, right? And then start here and extend this out along here. And then when I refresh now, uh-oh, think I might have drawn something at 0. So if the because it's cutting contours and we're like how many hundred feet are we at in Colorado?
7,000, I think it was.
7,000. So imagine the number of contours it's cutting right now. It's like what 14,000 contours. That's what's taking so long. So
Mm.
this is a bit of a user error. So if I select this contour and delete it, and now oops, and then I'll refresh again. It's going to be a lot happier. So I'll draw that again. So now we're going to be like mountain goats, and we're going to be very careful that our footing is good and we don't fall down the hill. And I'll refresh, and you can see how the grades now follow, those in-between grades follow really nicely. We get these flat areas too in these other places. This is really important if we're doing water analysis, because water is
Hmm.
not going to flow down a swale if it's not
Hmm.
actually a
Represent it, giving
crevice.
that information, that
Yeah.
level of detail.
Yeah, aside from it being like not looking good in a rendering, or aside from it, you know, those kinds of things, I think it's really important to actually represent this. And this is something that a computer doesn't know. When it looks at contours, it just does not know how to draw those contours. So it's important. We always look for the places where these these ridges and valleys occur. That's kind of how we talk about them, ridges and valleys. And then if I refresh again, see how it fixes that up. Really nice. If you get a survey from a civil engineer, a lot of times you can actually ask them for the brake lines. That's how they're working. And you could bring those brake lines into this layer and use that. A lot of times the survey, it'll have like sidewalks and all these things. It'll have basically they draw everything in terms of brake lines and then they cut their contours and clean those up.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, so you've got that's existing. Let me hit save. And now let's start to solve your grading problem. I know this is a little disorienting because we rotated the site a little bit. But can you draw on the screen like where we're trying to solve the grading? I guess I could turn on those other layers.
Yeah, let's turn it on. That way
Okay.
it's more of a
Yeah.
because we know what it,
Yeah.
well, I guess
All right. So
one
let
thing
me
that
let me
would
go in
be
here
interesting. Yeah.
and then I'll select which one is this?
And this would be the base and the
This is
grade.
trees.
Yeah, trees we don't need. I think you could delete that directly if you want.
Just gonna put it on the plants layer, change, hide that. And then we have this is our proposed GP.
Yeah,
So
there we go.
change that. Um, I'm going to cut that out and then actually put that outside of the block. I'm going to hide it real quick just because. So I know I'm kind of hopping in and out of these blocks, but so this is more grit, more plants. We're going to have episodes about plants, folks. Don't worry. Um, so
There
then
we
all
go.
these,
That line work from the, oh, that's the ground cover. I think you could also turn off.
okay, I'm going to turn
And
that.
materials too. I think the most important file now is going to be the base file. Yeah, the outline of the house is important.
Yeah. And then, so now these are like,
That's the
this is the
base.
line. What's that?
Yeah, that's the baseline work, the material. Well,
Okay.
this is the base, but the materials file. But it's also grabbing the base. So yeah, this is the outline, and this is kind of what I'd like to try to recreate.
Okay. Let's let's copy some of this into, oh yeah, those walls. Okay, cool.
And then there's another file, the base file, which will have the stairs and the walls.
Yeah. So one thing that's happening is that I don't want to do is while I'm in here in the block, I don't want to refresh because I'm like it's
Mhm.
looking at different it's looking for different geometry. It's going to be confused. It probably will just not work. But in some cases, it can freak out. Like if you're looking for something on a certain layer and then there's more geometry inside the block, it's like it can freak out. So just something to know about. But I'm going to copy this stuff for now, apply this, I'll hide this block, and then I'm just going to hide this. We'll keep our contours on, paste this stuff in.
There's the proposed
Oh, this is
grading.
sorry, this is the grading again. I'm not sure why I did that. We'll select text. Is that an annotation?
It should be, yeah.
Block.
Yeah, that's a block of the slope.
Oh, interesting. So each of these is like a different block? No.
No, yeah. It's the same block highlighting different things, top of walls, yeah.
Okay.
But I don't think you need that layer because I'm seeing the yellow text is the grading. So we could put that, we could freeze that as well.
Okay. So we can select everything on this layer. So this is the L contour major and minor.
Hmm.
Okay. So I've got those. I'm going to copy those, paste those in. And then I'm going to do, all right. So we have that. That's nice. And is there like a site boundary? Like where's the work boundary?
In the LNO file, and that purple line, there you go.
This purple line?
Yeah, the magenta.
Okay. And is there just one boundary? Well,
That's
but
the
that's
outermost boundary. It's the most important one.
oh, okay, okay. So, but this is yeah, this is just like the property boundary. I meant like the site of like disturbance. Do you have like the
And the easement, I guess you could, but sometimes in the grading, I go beyond that. But
yeah, gonna copy this.
and you're gonna put that on the existing Geo Set.
Well, this is just the material areas, right?
Yeah, you
Okay.
need the base line work
All right.
still, which is there. You see all these walls and stairs. You
Yeah.
need them.
So are the walls represented this way?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, let's just do this. We're probably gonna have to trace over some of this stuff. Let's do that. Let's just trace over it. So I'm gonna hide this for a second. Gonna hide even these contours. And I like to, if I'm not working on anything, I go to my no plot layer. Okay, so I'm gonna go in and get some, let's just start to like mask this out, right?
Right.
If we wanted to have a surface that like delineates a new area for grading, we might just say, okay, I just need a shape, this lawn panel, for instance, like, to kind of figure out how we want to draw this. I might just start massing this out, right? And then the hitch here is that because we're at 7,000, we're going to want to make sure that we move this to the right elevation. Right?
Hmm.
We're going to move this way up. And these are the kind of things like if you're working on a project like this, you might say, hey, like I'm going to subtract 7,000 feet, and we're going to be working at 7,000 plus whatever.
Hmm.
Um, so I can take this, I can put it
Yeah, because
here.
anyway, when you're talking about the grades, we're going from 81, not 7,381 to 7,390. It's 81 to
Yeah,
90, and that's
yeah,
that's the number you
exactly.
register.
So I'm just looking at, you know, let's assume we're this is the early in the process and we're just trying to figure out these different areas, right?
Hmm.
What I might do is say, okay, well, I know it's going to go here, and this is going to be one of my proposed break lines. So I say change this layer. And then I might start to say, and we can cheat because we know how big it is, but I'm going to say, what is that extent of work? Like how far out is that going to change things? So on the boundary layer, I draw I draw where how far out I think this thing is going to change, right? And you can see where I'm drawing that. I'm drawing it around where the grades are changing, right? So this is
Hmm.
the site of disturbance, right? Or extent of the disturbance.
And this just helps LandKit not have to process everything else, right? It's like a limit of work within the limit of work. It's like this is where we're going to refine and change stuff.
Yeah, yeah, it basically says, yeah, this is where we're going to make changes, but we're going to actually patch it in. So I'm going to
Right,
project
right.
this to the C plane just because I like to have my boundaries
Flat.
flat, and I'll delete that. So I do a quick save here. And then if I go over here, now I need to start to think about how the proposed actually functions within this mess here, right? So we say Control C, Control V. And we're going to change this to proposed, and then we'll change topo. We'll change this to topo prop, right? And then after we've created, this is a create topo component. So we have create geo, create topo, draw topo. Before we draw, we're going to patch the topo using our topo mod, right? So we can plug the topo in and then the geometry and I'll plug this into here instead. So we're drawing a different topo, one that has a patch, you know. And then if I look at the contours now, we can see that the contours are running straight across. Um,
Hmm.
let's hide that. Let's hide that
Yeah.
these contours now, because so this is one of the reasons why I make these kind of low contrast. And then what I we can do is we can do a bake preview. It's called bake plus preview, and we'll make it white. So the color is white. And I just did a swatch. So now you can see that these contours they run across except where I have the break line, right? They accommodate that break line. So if I in perspective, I can see it much better, right? Um, I can grab this and then I can say, all right, we're gonna alt drag this and make a copy. And we'll pull it over here. Oops, don't rotate it. And then you can rotate it. Like if you need a slope or something, that's kind of a fun thing to do. I'm gonna bring this to the remote panel so that I have the button here. So now I have existing and proposed. If I'm not changing existing, which I can like basically turn that off if I want. I can hide that. I do think it's useful, so I might just lock it. And then I can say refresh the proposed, and now it updates, right? So I'm seeing what's happening in real time. Um, and then I could make a copy of that. And this is just kind of like this is like when you're trying to just figure stuff out, right? Like I'm not even drawing any walls.
No, no, no.
I'm just trying to get like, will this grade work? That this is going to be an issue over here. How do I start to do this? And the
I
break
think
lines
for
are a
at
great
this
way to
point,
draw.
I would also change the spacing to one because now I'm already
Sure.
starting to think
Yeah.
about like where these pads are.
Yeah. Yeah, we can be at one elevate, oops.
Perfect.
So we want to
Yeah.
hide this because so see how we have certain things are previewed and certain things are not. The dark gray means it's not previewed. So we would hide this control. I just like to use this to be safe because control Q on a Mac is quit. Really something I had to learn. Um, yes, so
And I would
uh,
turn off the existing because at this point now we just want to see what we're, or maybe if you want to see it against what the existing, but
um, so it does this thing where if it doesn't have anything else, for some reason it doesn't show it. So what I may do is do a I'll just keep this on for now. We'll change it in a minute. Actually, let's turn this on. Okay. So we can see that, yeah, and we'll turn off these existing contours. All right, so now we've got that. It does help to like have the building in there too to sort of visualize this, a lot of times it's like bring the building in from the architect. Um, and that's good as well. But if we wanted to start to actually draw walls, let's hide this and let's just start to say, all right, how do we do walls? So we might draw a line along here, um, from there to there. And I'm on the boundary layer, so I want to make sure I'm on a layer that's useful here. So I'm going to go to my features layer that I have set up. And I like to just make it green because most people make those green. Say change the layer. And then we'll do an offset of, it looks like
I think they're 18 or 24 or
18.
something.
So we'll do that. So just an offset. Now the wall curves, the front and the back of the curve are drawn in plan. So it doesn't matter where they are in plan. But then the thing that we want to kind of change that wall elevation is the spot. So what I like to do is just draw those spots right on. I'm going to make those blue. I put those spots. Um,
At the end.
yeah, I'm actually going to draw them. Are your contours at elevation?
They should be at 7,000, whatever they are. Oh, those are my proposed aren't,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I drew flat. But the survey is
yeah. Um, all right, we'll do this. We'll move this up.
to the elevation of the break line.
Yeah, and I'll turn on existing for a second. So I'll just I said move vertical, and then I'll just select that point there for now. But the cool thing is I can move this pretty close proximity. I'm going to alt drag that to this one as well. I'll drag these two. They don't have to be precise. That's kind of a nice loose thing that you can alt drag them over here. Now, so far, all I've drawn are points that are at the same exact elevation. And I'm gonna put a set here. And then this guy here, I'm gonna move him down. Um, I'm gonna move him down, like how tall were the walls? Like -2 feet, right? Or probably more. And then
2.5.
and then I'll copy these here. And you can see what we're doing. We've got spots that kind of let the wall taper into the grade, right? So so how do we turn that into an actual wall? That's the tricky part. So then we're going to create a wall, create wall, and we want curves. So we're going to do um, a layer pipeline. And this is one of our new components. And the cool thing about this is I can say, I do two forward slashes. That creates a panel. I just type the name Topo features wall, plug that in. If it has geometry, I probably have the name right. If it doesn't, I probably have it wrong. So Topo has an underscore and features has an underscore. All right. And I look here, up two line-like curves. Perfect. I plug that into my curves, and then I'm going to do the same thing for spots. So I just copy and paste that, and I do spots. Now, all of this is manual. We're explaining everything manually. So if anybody who's watching is like, this is insane, so many pieces. We also have workflows that make this easier that you can go to and see. But this is for people who want to like build stuff, right? People who want to like understand this process, etc. So what we end up with here, we have the spots, we have the walls, and then we should have a preview of that wall. There we go. There's the break lines of the wall. Um, Pretty cool. Then we can go here and plug that into our features, right? So you've got your Geo Set, and then you have your features. So you can have walls, curbs, things like that. We'll do a quick save. I'm just going to hide these for now. We can also draw that wall. So we can say draw wall, just plug that in, and we'll see a nice preview of the full wall there. So now if I hit refresh on the topo, um, did it change it? Let's grab those points. We're going to move them up. There we go. Yeah, it's changing the elevation, so we can grab them. The neat thing about this with the layer pipeline is everything is live. You
Yeah.
can also set up the other stuff this way as well, so you don't have to hit refresh. And we're probably leaning in that direction, but for now, this is how it works. So you can do, if you're used to doing, if I hold shift, I can, and I know this is linear, I can actually push those out like that. And then, right, I might want to be in plan to just make sure that it's near there if I'm moving it that way. So that gives me a,
And it's
grading.
giving like a foot under the wall actually, right? It looks like it's building, it
Yeah,
gives
it
you
does that
wiggle
for
room.
cleanliness of the model.
Yeah, that's nice.
So that the wall is got a little bit of foundation. It's not representing the wall in a constructible way. Like I don't know if I'd recommend building your walls like this, but it's gives you something so that the renderings look decent and you get a sense of yeah grounding. So we can take this whole thing,
Just copy it down.
just copy it. Yeah, just take this whole thing, and make sure we don't have anything else selected. This is where I would start to like lock other layers and things like that and move it down. And then
What's blue?
it looks like, hang on a second. I think I did something funky. If you hold the wrong key command, it does an extrusion of the drag.
Hmm.
And so I can just take this now, and because I have the spots and the stuff selected, well, I might just actually only select spots, and I can move this down to here. And that fixes that. So I can begin to remove break lines that I don't need, right? And actually, the wall is going to override the break line because the wall is so indelible. What we've done is we've said if the points that a break line have drawn are this close to a wall, ignore it because the wall is the thing. So we actually have a whole series of like logic
Hierarchy.
that like
Yeah.
which is the most important thing. You can override that using an other geo, so you could like have a plane on the other geo layer, and that like is like going to override the wall. But
But th this
yeah,
would be very easy to like manipulate. Like I could grab those points and set
oops,
the
sorry.
Z value to that point, and then this would be flat.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's what we can do. So we can move this down. I can do a M, V, move vertical, and then just snap them to there.
And then we get our flat area. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a flat area. We have walls. Um, and we have contours. Like we're not drawing contours. We just have contours, right? And they're at elevation, so you're not having to later kind of elevate them or whatever. So that's pretty awesome. We can take this whole thing again, and I want to make sure I don't have, a lot of people don't know about the lasso tool. Lasso is great. It's like, use it in Photoshop a lot. Hit return. Now I've selected everything in plan at that location. I'm gonna Alt drag that over here. Um, I might scale in one dimension and also turn project on so that I'm not scaling something vertically at all. Does that make sense? Like project,
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
everything that's happening. Yeah. So, and then the other weird thing I want to do is make sure that I'm on that line. Hang on a second. S1. Because of these spots, you need to make sure that you're at the curve. This is just, stuff you need to pay attention to when you start getting into precision. And then you kind of get to there. It adjusts that wall. Great. We could break that wall up to get, we could split the curves. Actually, it will probably work really well if I just take this and I do a polyline and I draw. I don't know how, I'm probably being a little sloppy here, but I draw a polyline to trim that. Crazy thing is that it's still, right? It's still doing, it keeps, it extends the wall to whatever elevation you've drawn, right? So these are now two separate walls, but because this is the point, I can move it up. You can see it keeps the length of the remainder of the wall at that elevation. Um, and then we could get our stairs in there. Stairs are described a little differently. That you would use if I do go to the stair layer, and I usually these are like a blue, kind of a cerulean blue. Um, I'll draw a line at the top, oops, of the stair, in the bottom, and there's different ways to do this. Move 0, select, and then move it up here, snap it up. Well, that's weird. I might project this down real quick. Move it up. Oh, why is it? Because I'm on. What did I do? I messed with the wall somehow. Grab the curves, and then we're going to move them vertically. Move V. You have to hit M at return and then V return. I'll turn project off. That's what I was dealing with. Move that one to here, and then it looked like you had this is where the stairs are a little bit. you know, we've built them for topography and we'd like to kind of adapt that a little bit, but for now, this is how it works. But we can move this down. Let's say we want 4 steps. We say -2. And then what I like to do is select the first one and then the second one and say loft. We get a surface, we delete those curves. Now we have a nice stair surface that will describe the stairs for us. Looks like we need to move these down as well.
Hmm.
Um, so if I take that surface and I do
The
say,
same thing. Call
yeah,
the stair layer now.
yeah, call it stairs or stair. Is it stair or stairs? Stair. It's good to pay attention to the actual name because, yeah, because otherwise you're create stairs, plug this into here. The rise by default is 0.5. And then we're going to draw stairs, just like we did the other one. We'll hide this. And we have the stairs now getting previewed. We can plug this up into here. So what I like to do is do a merge component, and that lets me just have multiple inputs that I can plug in really easily, and I'm not doing like shift or whatever. But see this dotted line? This is a tricky thing. So because these are at like different branch levels, they're they're actually creating they split the data. It's almost like multiverse. Like it splits it into like multiple realities, and that each one has a different topography, right? So what we want to do is flatten this into one reality. So right click and say flatten. And that now all that stuff is a collection of features at one layer, and then it all gets processed into one topography. We go over here and uh, we can see that it's pretty similar because of the but you might need to extend this. You might say scale in one dimension, and then since there were four stairs, I want, 0.125 because I'm going to add one more stair, hit return. And now that, oops, did I do something wrong?
You want to scale it from the top to the top.
Oh, I need
If
to
not, it's
actually,
skewing it.
what's that?
If not, it's being skewed, right?
Yeah,
You
scale in
want to
one direction, and then,
these 2 points.
I actually I don't want to click. I just say 1.25 and then I click. So it's a tricky thing with scaling. If you want it to scale 1.25, you don't give it a reference point. You just say 1.25 and then you click. It's just kind of like a Rhino drafting thing. And a lot of these things I know I'm going a little fast with Rhino drafting, but um, you know,
But in section you scaled this is now this, right?
yeah, yeah. And the reason I
I
did one direction is so that
You wanted to
it wouldn't
change the
scale.
run.
It didn't scale this direction, right? So it only scaled here. And the reason I did 1.25 is because I had, 4 steps. So I needed another 25% to get my fifth step.
Uh-huh.
And I'm only scaling in the, SD or sorry, scale 1D. I'm only,
Yeah, okay. That's what I was
yeah, it's
getting
not
at.
just a regular scale. So
Right.
I like to use scale 2D and scale 1D. There's a lot of, it's an art of transformation here that we're dealing with. So, and when we're scaling and moving things. Um, so yeah, so that's good. And then, we might modify that wall to sort of return around those stairs, right? That's what your design had. I don't think we need to go into that. It's just a
Uh,
matter of like extending and joining those lines and moving those points. But the neat thing that we start to see is that these grades are changing.
Yeah,
If
and you're
I
not
say,
drawing.
what's that?
And I'm not drawing them. It's more
Yeah.
intuitive in how like you break out the length of the wall because you need a bigger area. Like when I first did it, you know, if you go to plan, I'll talk to you about a little bit about the process here.
Yeah. Can I show one
Uh,
thing before we go there?
yeah, go.
Let's say like for some reason you realize that you need a little bit more and you haven't really pushed very hard at the top. You could like move this whole thing down 1 foot and hit refresh here and it all updates, right? Pretty nice.
It's
Okay, so
super fast.
let's look and plan. I'm gonna save it. Saving is always good. Um, so what was the next thing you wanted to
No,
mention?
no, no. The thing I was gonna say is when I first did this, I thought that doing a third tier was a bit much.
Yeah.
You could see the existing grade is coming up near that line of where the house is today, and I think they were extending it. Oh no, it was back here. Whatever the case is, we wanted to create a flat area here that was tied to the elevation of the house. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
Preston said, "All right, well, the client wants to have a flat area that's up in the slope for a
Mhm.
fire pit and this barrel sauna, and they want a lawn area." So that became the third tier. And when I did it, I drew it at 10 feet wide and I had my wall and Preston saw he's like 10 feet is very and I drew all the contours dying into the 10 feet. And then he's like, let's make it 15. So I had to push it back. And this sounds so stupid, but it takes so much time to do this manually because you move that wall back 15 feet and then you have to dye all the contours again. Like you have to redraw those contours. Here I could just move, parallel or whatever. It doesn't even matter at this point. Like
Yeah.
and you have the design there.
I think I just crashed it.
Ooh,
Congratulations, we crashed for the first. This is why I keep this is why I
saving.
keep saving. I was moving, I was like back and forth. So we'll open Rhino again. Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just meant to like
No, to
illustrate
show it
basically
live.
what you were
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
It's live, like you're moving it and there's things that are changing live. So I'll open this file here. Um, and then we can make it full screen. And then one of the things that I was seeing is like the grades, maybe they're not as quite as refined as you'd like them to be, maybe in some of these areas. And eventually, like the way I like to think about it is like let's figure that stuff out. Let's figuring out about making it super pretty after we sort of solve the big moves. And it's not like the big moves are not about making it aesthetic. Like they are. They're about, how tall is this wall and how, there's these spatial concerns that we're having. Um, but then it's like whether or not the radiuses are lined up on the grades.
But
Like who
that's
cares?
not,
Yeah.
yeah, who
Like,
cares?
um,
I think one of the things that I would critique of the process that we've done is that it's very no, because even when you did the first break line, you tied it to a contour and you went into the side view. Like I thought of this as, all right, I know the finished elevation of the first floor. And I know that I can go up a max 30 inches. So those datums were always very clear to me, and those break lines of those walls, you move them in the Z value, and right now we're just like moving things
yeah,
fast, but they can
yeah,
be hyper precise,
they
which
could.
is
Yeah,
which is probably like where I'm more comfortable
yeah.
just thinking
Yeah, I'm just trying to illustrate the fluidity
how
of it.
fast,
But yeah,
yeah.
if you're like, okay, that's going to be 30 inches, you could like literally click those spots, move them down 30
Exactly.
inches.
And the way you did it where you grabbed everything and you just like moved everything down, it's super fast and you see
Yeah.
it real time the contours. And we could turn off the contours that I drafted and just
Yeah. Well,
visualize what we're doing.
part of the reason I wanted to keep them on was because, you can see um, that there's this kind of thing here, right? We're kind of naturally getting that curve there on all those like even on the white break lines are responding in a similar way to the yellow ones now, but we're not seeing it here, and we can adjust that. Well, maybe it's not too bad actually. We could adjust that um, by drawing a break line
Hmm.
that adjusts that. So if I do or I'm already doing a polyline. So I'm going to snap to
The survey.
the
Yeah,
maybe the existing contours here.
right.
Which is probably not quite right because they need to move down from there. And then those can kind of come up here. And then that doesn't want to be on whatever it is, the stair layer that wants to be on the proposed break lines. And then we'll hit refresh. And it's not going to be quite right. Um, because we snapped to the existing. Also, I think, oh man, just gonna remove that. Looks like we snapped to the zero, but you get the idea. Like
Yeah,
you
yeah,
can like
yeah,
fold
yeah.
it in a new
Cool.
way, right? Like you can start to manipulate that. But the other fun thing you can do, this is like you're gonna like this, is that I can say, well, the way that the grading is going here in this area is just, I want to be able to see. Oh, it looks like I need to turn these grades off here. It's under L,
Onto a major minor.
contour major minor.
COT. No, those are existing. L dash. There we go.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. So we can say, draw a polyline. I'm going to project that polyline and I'm going to put it on our,
Proposed break line.
no, we're just going to do it on no plot for a second. And I just, the area that I want this to be smoother.
The smoothing boundary.
Yeah, so I can create a boundary here and just say I know that this could just like look a little bit better here because the like you can see the contours in that area, it's a mesh. They're just
Yeah.
trying to connect. They're doing their thing. So we take that and we create a new layer inside of Topo. We call it mods, and then we do a new sublayer called smooth. We'll put, and I like pink. I think that works really well. We'll just do more of a bubble gum. And then I change that to that layer. Save real quick. We're going to go over here and looks like we have something funky drawn on the stairs. Select. Um, Stairs is not happy. Huh. There's something coming in that's strange. Um, anyway, so we can take that layer and we can say bring in mods.
This pipeline command was huge development last summer. Now that
Yeah,
I'm seeing
it was a
you
lot
work
of
with
work and
AI.
it's yeah, really challenging because the nice thing is it changes, like there's the Geo pipeline which does similar stuff in Rhino, but the layer pipeline allows you
Grab
to like
everything. You don't
bring
have to
all the
step on a
information
curve.
about that
Yeah.
geometry and it updates, like when you change the layer it actually changes, it updates it and things like that. So we're hoping to have similar updates soon for the Geo Set stuff. And then um, so I have my smoothing. What I'm going to do is a smooth mod, similar to our patch mod. I want that smooth mod to come in after the patch. right? Because I wanted to affect the changes that, the interpolation of grades that we're doing when we do the patch. So it's like we're layering these operations. So we take that geo, that's the boundary, we plug that into boundaries. We plug this into topo because we're modifying that topo. And then we say, what's the spacing between these? 4 feet's not a bad start. Let's see how that looks. And then we'll plug that in here. So we look here and look how nice and smooth those contours are in between, right? And the great thing is I can still grab stuff and move it around. I may have a little bit more to change now. Like I might have to change where that smoothing is happening a little bit, but it's still pretty nice. I can take that, move that out, smooth that, to that edge. So it updates it really nicely. Now, you had mentioned this before, which was like I'd like to see where water's flowing. Obviously, water is going to be a huge issue here for the uphill, and you may want to like think about that. But if you just want to understand where is that water going to go once it hits my site, you can take
All the
this
way on
mesh.
the face of the building.
What's that? Yeah,
All
it's all going
against
to
the
go to the
back
building.
face.
Yeah, you tell the owner to figure it out. Um, so we can say water flow lines. And the defaults here should work pretty well. If you have like a really big site and you're like, I'm just going to do water analysis and you plug in a giant mesh, just be aware that the default step size is 1 foot and um, you know, the the point definition, which is like how far apart those points are, is set at 15 feet, which is great for like pretty big sites, but not really big sites. It's going to take a long
Yeah.
time, especially if it's a detailed mesh. So we just pretty much plug that in for reasonably sized sites, and now we have water flowing across the site. Um, Obviously we don't have our building, but we can see where water's going. We could begin to create swales that divert that water or whatever, or know where to put the drains, right? Where to put the trench drain or whatever. Um, and it just tells us right away. This is every 15 feet. It gives us a pretty good sampling, right? Because it's not just every 15 feet, it's also traversing all of the space in between. And we get a very, very good sense of where things are going. There are other ways of understanding this. Another kind of analysis that we can do that's really easy is plug in our slope pieces. We plug that in, and at the first thing we just see, oh, it's another mesh. But what we have to do is a bake plus preview, and we can plug the meshes into here and the colors into here. And I can hide this. Now I can see where the steepest slopes are. Um, and this actually has a bit of a cross slope to it. This does not. Um, Things like that, right? And we can also do a legend here. So if I do a legend and plug in color,
I
and
love the one fish, two fish.
I know that's Grasshopper. The developer of Grasshopper, David Rutan, has quite a good sense of humor. So you plug those in, and this is like a nice understanding of what those slopes are. If you just want to see it in Grasshopper, if you're working in Grasshopper, it might be enough. But if you need to preview that, you can right click here and say set a rectangle, and then we can draw that rectangle in Rhino and see it appear there, and we can sort of see, okay, this is over 50%, or this is, whatever. And it looks like our smoothing, you know, we could use some extra smoothing in here. And we definitely want to go around the walls because we don't want to mess with the edge of that wall because it will smooth out the wall, unfortunately, because we're
Mm.
applying it after the fact. But you see, I'm just snapping to those walls. So that gives us a nice, you know, smooths it out a little bit. You can also change the settings of that smooth to be, you could have two iterations of smoothing.
What do you mean iteration?
So it's going to smooth it and then it'll smooth it again.
Ah,
Basically, yeah. And you could also do a spacing tolerance of 1 foot, which is getting more detailed and it's going to
Instead,
take
it was
longer to
because it was
process.
four before.
What's that?
Because it was four before, right? So
Yeah, it was
you're
4 foot spacing. Now, I would recommend to people don't overdo it, right? Like
yeah, yeah,
you want performance, you want the thing to go fast.
right.
You don't want to be like this is perfect, but I can't actually work on it. You know?
Yeah.
Like you want to smooth it out. But I mean, look at those contours now. They're really starting to be more like something you might draw. And even if they're not perfect, like if you were to export these now and like for documentation, you could clean that up. Really, it's a great tracing, something to trace over. So, so that's pretty nice. Um, hide this. What else are we missing, Ishaan? I mean, what else do you want to know about? And I'm just going to mess around a little bit while you're
And
thinking.
how would you change the colors on the elevation?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm changing the color of the flow lines by plugging it into a preview, grabbing that color, the color that I like, which would be like more of a blue. Plug that in, hide this so we don't have two multiple. And then there we go. We got a nice, it's not super contrasty, but maybe I actually go with the dark blue in this case. There we go. And then if I want to change the elevation preview, so I'll
The
hide
slope
this.
analysis, yeah.
Oh, you want to change the slope analysis?
The gradient.
Yeah. So the way the slope works, you have to think of it. There's a set of default values. So it goes from 0 to 2, 2 to 5, 5 to 8.3, 8.3 to 15, etc. And then 50 to like a very tall, a very, very high number. Like it's not infinity, but it's really, really big. And so you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 steps. So that means you need 8 colors.
Mm.
So if you want to change it, we can sort of say, okay, flat is white. Um, like my 2 to 5 is going to be like a light green. My, um, we'll start getting into the yellow maybe. Like this is still not a bad slope. Like 5 to, um,
Yeah, it's still walkable.
yeah, yeah. So white is actually 0 to 2, by the way. It's not just zero. I think I wanted to correct that. So yellow is where we start to run into a danger zone. And I might actually make that a little darker yellow. And then we can start to just say, okay, we're just gonna go up from there. Orange. So that's 5, darker orange, like a red, dark red. We got 7. And then we'll do burgundy. Okay, so we just plug those into a merge component. Just stack them all up. And then we plug that into colors. And now we
Beautiful.
have a new set of colors, right? So you can customize that. You can also customize the steps. Right now, the default step value are these. But if you wanted to change it to be
Yeah,
like,
yeah. If you wanted more refined,
yeah,
um,
every percent to
one
5, and
percent,
then
right?
whatever is, higher than that, I don't care. It's too big, right? Like you could have different styles. So yeah, you could approach it in different ways. And the cool thing is like you can preview and unpreview these things or
How do you control the range?
the range. You mean like this here?
Yeah, right now it's zero. What's
Yeah.
controlling the?
It's the default. So if I were to do similar to the before, like let's do what I was saying. So let's say 1, oops, 2, 3.
I see. You need eight.
Well, how many do you need? 7 actually. because it's the steps in between, and then you have
Right.
like the zero and the infinity on the other sides of it. So it's yeah, it's a little that it's a little tricky to think about. But if we do five, we go one, two, three, four, five, and then we have yeah, we could just stop there. And so that would be one, two, three, four, five, six steps. So if I do a merge and I plug this in here, I'm moving too fast. I'm just going to lock it for a second because I don't like things to be processing that I'm not totally sure. Like if I, is it going to like freak out, you know? So I plug that in there and then I change. I'm just going to ice a couple of these. Actually, I can just do Control E to disable them.
Nice.
And then now I have these steps. So it goes, 0 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, and then 5 and
Perfect.
up, you know. So I look there and now I can start to really refine those grades in that tighter space. Um, yeah, so that's how you change it there, but you can also change this. You can plug this into the
The topo elevation. Oh, I did
mhm.
myself.
Yeah, so you can plug that into the topo elevation. So I'll show this. Just hide all this stuff. And now I have that elevation.
Gradient.
The legend is not right because it's still previewing from the slope, but you can
Right,
see, and
right.
it's the nice thing is it's like, you know,
GIS.
civil
I've done
engineering
this.
software
Yeah.
or GIS. It can be like a mini GIS, and that actually the environments, which we haven't looked at all, are pretty amazing in terms of having this little mini GIS right at your fingertips while you're doing all this stuff. Um,
I mean, GIS, I think is very expensive, so this is like a great alternative also,
yeah,
and within the design packet, like, and you're not jumping between programs also, so
yeah,
another benefit of working with Land Kit.
yeah. And it sort of I think it speaks a lot to the McHarg idea
Yeah, yeah,
of having
yeah.
these layers and but it's in the design and it's all sort of live and you can do it to
Well,
the
that's one of the
proposed
things
as well
we
as the existing.
It's one of the things that I've always appreciated about joining your workshops and hearing how you guys talk about design. It isn't, obviously the software helps you design form, but it's also educating designers to think about these environmental conditions and to have it all bundled in one space and be responsive to that. So I think that what you guys have done is really intelligent in saying, okay, landscape modeling, we all do it. We have to produce a beautiful graphic image to
Mhm.
sell our designs. How do we accelerate that process? Enter LandKit. But then layer in all these other external issues that happen in so many different platforms, GIS, Ladybug. You're like researching sun paths and doing that in another space, like all of it happens in one thing, and I think
Yeah,
that's what's, for this project, you're drawing attention to something that I had forgotten. The direction of water is smacking against this building, and it could be a really beautiful design opportunity that I hadn't even considered because I had a tight deadline, and it was create these terraces and figure it out and grade it. But
yeah,
there's ways to critique the design with these environmental parameters
yeah,
that we're asked to solve for today.
yeah. And what you could do is like let's say you pull in a little quick GIS, like a little bit of topo from GIS, which we can do through Heron here in Grasshopper, and you look and see, hey, like what's that watershed, right? And oh, hey, Buster, you're going to have this many gallons of water coming to your site. And it might not be that much, but however much uphill water is coming down to your site. And then how do you deal with that water, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
there's so
yeah.
much that they could do to turn that water into carbon
Yeah, because
sequestration or
we only
a
think
garden
about
or whatever.
it within our limit of work, but the potential to take it to that scale is really powerful
Yeah.
and
Yeah. And
simple.
you might not be working at that scale while you're designing,
Right.
but maybe you just do that as an order of magnitude to understand like, yeah, um this little stream here is like
It's
that
actually
represents a
coming
huge
back wood.
like yeah. So awesome. Well, I think this is a great place to stop. And we're looking forward to doing a whole season of this, looking at other design projects. And Ishaan and I are going to workshop these. And it's gonna be pretty fun. I'm excited.
That's super fast.
Yeah,
I'm super pumped.
yeah, me too. All right, thanks, Ishaan. See you next time.
Thanks.
Bye.
Ciao.